Thank you, Gavin. Hello, everyone. Greetings of the day. This is Ishrat Fatima. I'm the Chief Program Chair of this program. Why the Toastmasters Revelation Program? Nelson Mandela has said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. The same logic applies to Toastmasters. Education acts as a catalyst to elevate Toastmasters to additional levels of performance by crystallizing the core values of integrity, respect, service, and excellence. The communication and the leadership skills you will gain and hone within Toastmasters form an invaluable foundation in preparing you for the world beyond Toastmasters. We have launched the program called the Toastmasters Revelation to invite renowned Toastmasters in the Bay Area and around the world to present educational session every Saturday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. to provide a bridge to our Toastmasters to apply their skills in the real world. The vision of this program is to learn from the best in Toastmasters on how to improve our communication and leadership skills. Each session highlights the most transformational moments experienced by illustrious Toastmasters, distinguished public speakers, contest winners, DTMs, experts, and illuminate the underlying factors that led to their transformation. The agenda of today's program is divided into three discrete segments: the story, mechanics, and the Q&A. Our team comprises of program founder Gavin Wang, who is our Division D Director, our Chief Program Chair, it's me, Ishrat Fatima, Area D5 Director, Public Relations Head, Ghazal Saheli. I would like to extend my thanks to Rana, who had helped us in promoting this program. We are planning to create a committee comprising district leaders, area directors, president, vice president of education, and other renowned Toastmasters. You are welcome to join us. Our Toastmaster of the day is Gary McKenzie, who is an accomplished speaker, Toastmaster, and business success coach. Let us welcome Gary.
Thank you, Ishma. And before I introduce our outstanding speaker, turn on your video because this session is interactive. Have you ever seen a speaker in the middle of his or her speech gracefully handle an unexpected interruption? If you answered yes, you're in the right place. Would you like to be that speaker? Today, you'll pick up proven time-tested tools to help you be present in the moment when you are on stage. Our speaker learned secrets of impromptu speaking at some of the Bay Area's best improv schools, including BATS, Comedy Sports, and Made-Up Theater. She works with corporations and associations and individuals just like you and me to apply improv skills for better speaking and leading. She's also a professional runner. When she's not at work, she can be found running around with her husband and 4 rescue parakeets. Working with us today on being present by using improv techniques, please help me welcome, all the way from Sunnyvale, California, speaker, coach, and improvising Toastmaster Elaine Lung.
Thank you, Gary. I wish you could have been there. I was seated on the stand in a courtroom in Santa Clara, California. The judge looked at me, the prosecuting attorney looked at me, and I started to sweat. But really, should I have been? I mean, it was a mock courtroom trial for my friend Susan, who was in law school. And she just asked me to come and help her out. She said, no problem, Elaine, sit on the stand. Just answer whatever they ask you. There's no script, no problem. Just make it up as you go along. Okay. I was a junior engineer at a Silicon Valley company. I was eager to improve my skills. I thought this would stretch me, being, rather shy and introverted. This would stretch me in a good way, and no harm, no foul, right? So I went. But sitting there looking at him, his eyes bored into me, it wasn't comfortable at all. I tried to make up answers. I tried to think of something, but finally I just stopped talking and froze. They let me off the stand. Oh, thank you. I sat down. Glad that's over. But then we had the debrief session where the judge, who is the professor for the class, went through all the witnesses and all the lawyers and debriefed the whole thing. It got to me. Sometimes you get a witness that freezes like a deer in the headlights. Next. Those words still hurt today. Have you ever had a deer in the headlights moment that you wish you could take back? Well, fast forward now, from those years in 1994 to 2016. It's South San Francisco, Embassy Suites Hotel, and I'm on stage. I'm the Toastmaster for the International Speech Contest, the big event of the year for the district, and there are over 200 excited and happy Toastmasters in the audience. They're waiting to see who's going to win the contest. There are 9 contestants, and I get to bring them up and take them off stage and then interview them afterwards. I have to keep it going and moving. There's a contest script, but the interview part is up in the air. We make that up as we go along. I had their bio sheets, and I started going through the contestants. And about 2/3 of the way through, I started to really feel more comfortable. I got to Krishna. It said table tennis as his hobby. Krishna, do you like table tennis? I do. Do you get to play much? I don't. Why not? There's no one to play with. I looked out at the audience, 200 people eager to play along. Hey, does anyone here play table tennis? Several hands went up in the back. Would you be willing to talk to Krishna afterwards about playing table tennis? Yeah, we'd love to. Fabulous. Turn to Krishna. Problem solved. The laughter of 200 people in the ballroom was the furthest I've ever felt from that deer in the headlights moment. So let me ask you, what made the difference? What made the difference from 1994 to 2016? Today, I can tell you it was taking improvisational theater classes. Because between 94 and 2016, I joined Toastmasters. I'd gotten over the fear of public speaking. I learned how to analyze speeches, which was great because I'm an analytical kind of person with an engineering background. And I had started to get all that, but it was always a challenge for me to do table topics, to do impromptu, extemporaneous speaking, to stand up and say anything at all with coherence in the moment. But when I went to Comedy Sports in downtown San Jose and took the adult improv classes, I started to learn what it felt like to do table topics on steroids. There was no thinking, just reacting. So let me ask, I'm going to put everybody on gallery, and I'd like to see a quick hand raise poll. Of everyone in the audience here, can you give me an idea if you know what improv is? Raise your hand if you have done it and you have been on stage and you feel like, yeah, I know what improv is. Okay, great. Put your hand on. 2 fingers up if you're like, yeah, I've heard of it, but I've maybe watched a show. I sort of know what it is a little bit. I'm kind of there. Okay, great. All right. And then I'd like you to put up 1 finger if you're like, I have no idea what improv is. Elaine, please define it for me. All right, fabulous. Improv theater specifically. You've heard of improv jazz probably, which is playing songs without sheet music. Improvisational theater is presenting a play on stage for an audience with no script. It's literally made up as you go along. The players are reacting to each other on stage to create something out of nothing. And if this sounds like life, that's the whole point. Making something out of nothing as you go along. These skills can help you be a better communicator on stage. Because my whole premise of this speech is that when you're on stage and you're in the moment, you're present with your audience, even if they're on Zoom, you can connect with them in a deeper way. You can connect with them in a deeper way and impact them more than if you're just in your head, worried about what you're going to say, worried that you need to get every word right. When you're truly there and present and in the moment, magic happens. So how can you use improv in your speaking? Think about that. Let's move forward, though, and talk a little bit about improv and show for the people who haven't seen it a little bit of what it looks like. So we're going to have a quick demo here with me and Gary. And is Ishrath going to play along too?
Okay, I can try.
Okay, all right. So Gary's unmuted. This is called Yes and. This exercise illustrates the fundamental principle of improv. Because when you're on stage creating something out of nothing, you need a mental strategy that allows you to accept what is offered to you. That's the yes part. You accept it, doesn't mean you agree with it, doesn't mean you like it. It means you accept the reality of the situation that you're creating on stage. You accept it. The yes part is what you can add to move the scene forward. What you, of your creativity and your thoughts, can bring to it to move it forward to a new place to entertain the audience. It's all about moving the scene forward. So yes and is literally what the players are doing to whatever's offered to them on stage. And a simple way you can do this, and you can do this at your Toastmasters Club or with anyone, is to have a conversation. So we're going to have a conversation and we're going to talk about something, and we're going to, after the initial statement, the two other players, Gary and Ishrath, are going to yes and. They're going to respond with yes and then add to it. Yes and then add to it. Yes and add to it. And then we're going to do this for about a minute and then see where it goes. This is a simple way to get that muscle. Improv is just a muscle, everyone. Improv, if I can learn to do improv, you can. Improv is just a muscle. It's like public speaking. It's a skill. And I wouldn't even call it a soft skill. I think it's a critical skill to help you handle whatever comes your way during the day. So, Ishrath, Gary, we need something to plan. Generally, this conversation goes well if we have something to plan. And please type in something in the chat that we could plan. Plan a workshop, great. And now we need something that you use every day. Something you use every day. Just go ahead and type a suggestion in the workshop, in the chat box. Something you use every day. Zoom, okay. I like that. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, Ishrath, Gary, we're going to have a conversation about yes and. We're planning a workshop, and Zoom needs to come in somewhere. So I'll make the initial offer. Ishrath, we need to plan a workshop for next week. Is that something you feel you could do?
Yes, and I have poetry as a plan for that.
Yes, and we'll have to decide the best way to present it. What platform would you recommend?
Yes, it's really important to have a good platform, Gary. How about Zoom? Would that work for you?
Yes, but plan to have how many people are going to attend that workshop?
Yes, and I would think at least 50 would be a great number to attend the workshop.
Yes, and 50 would be great. And how about 500?
Yes, and to attract that many members, we need to go to Gavin and Rana.
Yes, and we need to be sure that their appearance is perfect because they're representing the program.
Yes, and a professional appearance is really important on Zoom.
Yes, and how about creating a flyer for that?
Yes, and the flyer with them smiling so that they can really present themselves well.
Yes, and make sure everyone is wearing pants. Okay.
Yes, and it happens.
All right, that was scene. Gavin waved his hands there. Okay, that's a scene. All right, because that's a joke about Zoom, right? Anyway, I'm not asking. Okay, I'm not asking. So, yes and is this fundamental attitude. Let's give a hand to Gary and Ishraf. Nice job, everyone. Jazz hands. With yes and, if you apply that to what's coming your way in life, think of what you could do. And I'm not saying that you say yes and to everything. It's part of your day, your mental strategy. Today, I'm going to focus on 3 things that will help you. It's a strategy to help you apply a particular improv, the mindset of yes and, but 3 strategies, simple strategies, and then we're going to go to a breakout and play around with it. So if you don't have earphones, I really suggest you get some earphones handy and get back on, turn your video on, and get ready to play with another player in a few minutes. First, though, the acronym I'd like to introduce you to that I want you to think about using in this breakout exercise is OUT. Out. O-U-T. And think about how when you're on stage, you're looking out at everyone. Think about how life's a player and we're all on stage, like Shakespeare says. Think about how you're looking out at people all the time through your day. So the first letter is O. Right? O is observe. The O of out is observe. So when you're going through your day, when you're on stage, for example, let's focus it down to when you're on stage as a speaker. And by the way, if you're talking to one person, are you on stage? If you're talking to 4 people, are you on stage? 400? How many does it have to be till you're on stage? I would submit to you that even if you're talking to one person, you're on stage. Even one person on the phone. So what can you observe with your conversation? Where are you? What do you hear in the background? What do they look like if you can see them? What do you observe about them? Their voice tone, their attitude. What do you observe about what's going on as you're on stage? Observe. You means use what's in front of you. Use what's in front of you. Whatever you observe, use it. Use it in your conversation. And here's the thing. Here's an improv secret. When improv players are looking for suggestions and the audience, maybe they get a really wild suggestion, the audience might laugh, but that probably would be the biggest laugh they get because it's a difficult thing to work with. Martians out beyond Pluto driving a pickup truck. What do you do with that to create a scene? But if you have something like, hey, how about a cup? Okay, we could do a scene about a cup. So for improv, think inside, use what's in front of you. Think inside the box. Finally, T, take a risk. T is take a risk. You've observed, you have something to use. Now take a risk and use it. Let's think about what I did on stage at the contest, the International Speech Contest, when I talked to Krishna. Observe. We have 200 people in front. There's 9 people here. I have his bio. All these things are for me to use. You. Use. What can I use? I can use all those things I just observed, is my point. But what will I use? Is table tennis necessarily great and interesting to everyone in the room? I don't know. Some might. But just why think of some esoteric wild question about something that's difficult for him to answer? Just use what you know he's interested in, right? Table tennis. So use the obvious. And then finally, T, take a risk. Take a risk and say, well, he can't find anyone to play tennis with, but I let that stop me. Who else can play tennis? Take the risk and ask the audience. You see? So it was observe, use, and take the risk. And that's where the magic happens. That's where the magic happens. Okay, we have an exercise for you to practice OUT with someone, and we have another game to play. So Ishraf, I believe you have some slides with instructions. And we're going to put the instructions up, and then Ishraf, Gary, and I are going to run through this really quickly. And then we're going to go through send you guys out to breakouts. Are we doing okay there?
I have uploaded the file in the chat.
Oh, the file's in the chat. Okay. So everyone in the chat, the instructions are for you. Breakout room exercise. So you can go ahead and download that and take a look. And I'm going to run through it while we're talking here. You're going to be sent out to the breakout room, and are there going to be 2 or 3 people in the breakout rooms, Ishrat?
Gavin, how many people are we having?
2 to 3 people.
All right. So here's the thing, everyone. Bear with us. You're going to have some fun and improvise. You might have 2 people in your room. You might have 3. If you don't have any, come back and talk to us in the main room, okay? This is what will happen. In your room of 2 or 3 people, you'll have 5 minutes, I believe. And you're going to do a conversation we call My Last Word is Your First Word. So you're going to go around the group, 2 or 3 people, whichever one it is, and you're going to say a short statement about something. Anything you want to talk about, talk about. And the last word the first person says is the first word the next person says. And then the second person's last word is the first word of the next person who speaks, whether it's the third person or the first person, okay? So that's the last word that you say is my first word. Those are the general rules, okay? Here's the thing I would love you to do is to challenge yourself. This is a game. The last word that you hear is the last word. No adding words ahead of it. So, for example, if I'm talking to Gary and he says cat, cat is my first word, not the cat, not a cat, or 3 cats. It's cat. Okay? So that's the challenge. Make it work. And players play with each other. Play along and support each other in this game. Second rule, as you're doing some deep listening here. But what you hear is what you hear. This is not the time to go, oh, excuse me, I didn't quite get that word right. Could you repeat it again? No, we're playing, everybody. I want you to grab whatever you hear and run with it because everyone in your room is going to support you. Everyone cool with that? Yeah? Wave some hands or something. Give you some nods. All right, great. We're going to play and just see what happens and observe OUT as you're playing. So Gary and Ishrath and I are going to do a couple rounds of this, show you how it is, and then we're going to send you out. Okay. So Gary, would you feel comfortable starting with something?
Certainly, certainly. I feel today is going to be really a powerful learning experience.
Experience is the key to getting better at anything.
Anything, you can grab it from the Toastmasters Revelation Program.
Programs are really important because when you follow the program, your learning will greatly be increased.
Increased and expanded and growing beyond your wildest dreams.
Dreams are something that we need to have in order to reach the goals.
Goals are whatever you choose to, but it's important that you have a goal because without a goal, you're not going to move forward.
Forward is imminently better than backward when you're driving a car in traffic.
Traffic. Nowadays, we are having very less traffic in Bay Area.
Bay Area is really fortunate because without so much traffic, there's more room for people to ride bicycles.
And bicycles work great except for when the air quality is terrible. Okay, see. Okay, any questions on what you're doing in the breakout room? I'm not seeing any, so go on to your breakout room and observe the OUT, and we'll come back and do a quick debrief. Okay, have fun. Play and have fun.
Hi, Sharon.
Actions over Zoom in this video.
That was fun.
That was fun.
Awesome. Okay, I heard that was fun. I'm so happy.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
All right, I would like to get a few short specific comments about what you experienced in the breakout room.
It was easier than I thought it would be, Elaine. Especially feeding off of each other and observing. The biggest thing I learned is getting things, just by observing other people, you can get something else that you can probably use as you move forward. So that's it.
Fabulous. Thank you. It sounds like you were using the O and the U. Great. Okay. Any other observations about using O and U? And T. Okay. Or you can type them in the chat if you'd like. And
Eric,
What are we supposed to type in?
yes, please type it in the chat. And we can
what you experienced in the room, in the conversation you had about observing, using, and taking a risk. Because I've heard feedback from some people that they feel that it felt more risky. It felt more risky to use what they saw rather than to try to steer the conversation in a way they wanted to go. I don't know if anyone felt that way, that they're just not used to using what they observe. We got a few. It says it was fun, teamwork. It was fun. Yeah, exactly. The more you take a risk, the more easy it is to do it next time. Adding risk by using obscure words at the end to start the next sentence. Not as difficult as I thought. It's fun. It was fun. It was playful. Excellent. Yeah, it's meant to be playful. It's meant to take a risk and try something new. This exercise is about listening deeply. This exercise is also about not being in control so much, letting them guide the conversation. Did anyone find the conversation took a turn they weren't expecting? It went in a direction that they didn't anticipate? Yeah, great, okay. Yes. Did it go somewhere better than they could have imagined?
Elaine, we have a question. How do you start a sentence with the word them?
Them?
Yes.
You could just talk about it as a noun. Them is a word that people use when they don't know how to say those. There was a game yesterday we were playing, and a guy came in, and we were doing this game, and he's like, I'm sorry, guys. I just had a horrible day. I can't think of anything. And, I can use that. We can make a scene off that. Literally showing up and just playing is all you need to do. That's the secret here. And a lot of times it's true. Okay. Them the bones. There you go. There's all kinds of things. Them apples. That's right. There's all kinds of things you could use, and putting it out there and challenge yourself to stay within the restrictions of the game exercises your creativity. Yes. All right. So OUT. It's a strategy you can use to get out of your head and be more present with your audience when you're on stage. And I have a few minutes here, and I wanted to show you a little more advanced skill that I learned from one of my coaches. But before I do that, I want to tell you a story first. And I want you to, if you will, go back with me. And if you had been with me when I was a junior in high school, it was on the east side of Cleveland, Ohio, and it was a late spring day. I was competing in my first speech contest. And I was dressed up in my navy blue suit with the little high heels, like high school kids do when they dress up and try to look like in the 80s. And I'm walking into the room and not knowing exactly what to anticipate, but I was really confident in my speech. And I opened the door, and it turns out it was in the gymnasium of the school, Shaker Heights High. And I was walking in the gymnasium. You could hear my wood heels clicking across the wooden floor, and up in the air, those high windows, the weak sunlight was streaming through like it does in the springtime in Ohio. And I turned to face my audience, and it was 5 adults sitting at those high school desks in the gymnasium. That's all. So I took a deep breath and I launched into my speech. And I was getting to the point where I knew, I tested this speech, this is where they should laugh. You know what they did? They just stared at me. I didn't feel so comfortable anymore. But I took another deep breath and kept going because I knew I had another story in my speech. It would warm up their hearts and they would like it. So I kept working and I got to that story and I told it. And I looked at the judges and you know what they did? That little voice started talking in my ear. They hate you. They hate your speech. This is terrible. Just go sit down. You have nothing worth saying. All of those negative things that our inner voice tells us started. And I kind of just lost my place. I couldn't think of the next thing to say. I turned and I snuck out of the gym. But before I went, I looked back at one judge. I thought, surely she would have some pity on me. I'm trying as hard as I can. I'm just a high school student. She looked at me as if to say, next time, just say no to speech contests, honey. It was the worst feeling. I never, ever want to feel like this again, I said. I never, ever want to do this again. No more speech contests for me. And that's how I operated for 20 years. I wouldn't speak to groups. I could do one-to-one, I could do interviews, but when the boss asked me to give a speech to the group at work, I did everything to get out of it. One time I even totally refused. So you can imagine what that was doing in my career and my promotability and my salary and all of that, plus just how I felt about not being able to speak up for myself. Until finally one day, I joined Xilinx. And at the group lunch, my first day, Raul Rocha, who was a member of the Xilinx Expressionist Toastmasters Club, leaned across the table and said, Elaine, you know we have a Toastmasters Club here. And before that little voice could get started, I said, Raul, I'm joining. Because I was just sick and tired of feeling sick and tired about being afraid to speak. And the first time I was able to be called on for table topics at the Toastmasters meeting, I was in my usual place, the back of the room, staring at the floor, because if I'm not looking at them, they can't see me, right? But they saw me. Hey, we have a new Toastmaster today. Elaine, come on up. And before I could stop them, my feet were getting me to the front of the room. I turned and I said something to the audience. I don't know what it was to this day, but it was enough because the Toastmasters clapped and that changed my life. I said, these are my people. This is where I need to be for the support, the guidance. That's what got me over the hump. So 5 years later, it was another gymnasium. This time it was in Cupertino. And my heels clicked across the wooden floor and I had the mic and I turned and I faced the audience. It was 100 of my closest family and friends. The dress had to be perfect, the makeup had to be perfect, and the hair. Absolutely no crying. And I said a wedding toast to my new husband. Wow. Afterwards, the pastor came up, a man who's paid to give a new speech every week of the year, and said, wow, that was amazing. And you know, that moment, a year after that speech, there are people who no longer are with us on earth, but I was able to talk to them in that moment. So what made the difference in that journey? It was the confidence and the coaching and the encouragement I got from Toastmasters. And this is the point I'm illustrating. This is the second time I've told a story with this format in this speech. Did you notice? This is a story format that I was taught by Craig Valentine, a world champion of public speaking. And I did coaching with him. This is called the Then, Now, and How story. And whenever you want to persuade someone to take action on your ideas, your thoughts, your products, your services, you can tell a then, now, and how story to illustrate it. And this is what, first off, you want to know your audience, and you want your audience to be someone who wants what you have to offer. Okay, that's kind of key. Second, you start with a story where something happened that was bad and it's emotional and it's something that your audience definitely doesn't want. And then right next to it, you tell a story where something happened that is good, and your audience would definitely want that. And the contrast between the two is very obvious. And then you say, what made the difference? What's the bridge between those two events? And that is the solution that you're offering to the audience. That is what illustrates the difference. So for example, you see this all the time. Do you ever see weight loss programs where they have a before picture and an after picture? And then they ask you what made the difference? It's the program. You've seen anything that's before and after, getting fit, building muscle. So the advanced technique here is the then, now, and how story, where you're talking about what it was like then, what it's like now, and the bridge between is what you're offering. And the more of a struggle you have in getting from then to now, the bigger impact it has that whatever you're offering will be what the audience would buy into. So that was just an advanced technique, and Gavin asked me to show that because if you use that, like I did at the beginning of the speech here, you can really get your audience to buy in and get drawn into the speech and see what the transformation is. And this program is about transformation. It's about taking you from where you are to where you want to go, to leveling up. Like, for example, with OUT, wherever you are, if you are in the moment and use what you have on stage, you will level up from wherever you are. And if you're an advanced speaker and you want to persuade the audience of your ideas, use the then, now, and how story to illustrate the transformation in you so that the audience buys into what you're offering. Okay, so that's the advanced technique and another technique to level up. So at this point, I think we're about ready to go into questions. And Gary is taking questions in the chat. Questions about improv, being in the moment.
Elaine, while they're thinking, one question that always comes into my mind is, how can I stay focused and listen to what's being said as opposed to thinking, oh, what am I going to say next?
Yeah, Gary, that's a great question. The challenge in deep listening or active listening is really staying focused on what they're saying without all the chatter going on in your head about where you want to say in response. Because a lot of times when we listen, we're just listening to respond. We're not really deeply listening to what they say. So an exercise that could help with that is, as you're listening to someone, and I'm just talking day to day, how many times do we listen to someone without looking at them? If they're in the room and you can look at them and listen. And then, instead of responding immediately, pause and count to 3 and then respond, so that you're focusing truly on their words and before formulating your answer. So that can help with more focused listening, but it's just like anything else, it's something you can practice to get better at.
Here's a question. It says, one thing I have learned is the importance to prepare the audience before sharing your story. Any tips on how to do that before sharing the story, the then, now, and how?
How did I prepare the audience today before hearing the then, now, and how, which was the first thing out of the box? The program was introed, I was introed, and then we went right into it. It's a technique. And as a keynote speaker, so what I mean by that is someone who does longer programs than just 5 to 7 minutes. This is the kind of thing you put in strategic places around your keynote. So there's a format to that. It's a little too much to go into right now. You can contact me afterwards and I can give you something more specific. But yeah, there's different things, different pieces you put in the keynote at different places. I'm doing like this because it's like you think of it as an hour and then you have chunks you put in during the hour. That's all I'm doing. So It's a way of telling stories. Stories evoke emotions. Stories are the best way to make your point. I love stories. Very effective. Okay, thanks, Ishrath. Next question.
It says the improv responses were short sentences. Do you have a method for formulating longer responses?
In the game itself,
Yes.
short kind of works, because one or two sentences, because you want people to play back and forth in the limited time you have. So someone mentioned this at another time when I presented this program for another place, and he said, what about a business? Could you repeat the last word as a way of priming yourself to respond? And several people are like, I see that all the time. So it could be a way to help yourself get going with an answer at business.
Okay. Elaine, here's one. After the question is asked, I think this would be for the game or just in conversation. After the question is asked, can you share ways we should start speeches with when nothing pops into our head?
Oh, what a great question. What a great question. Here's another improv tip. So glad you asked. Take a look at what's in front of you right now. And I don't mean the screen. Just look around. You don't have to move your head. Just move your eyes. What do you see? Anything that you see is a prompt to start speaking on. When you are in this kind of situation, just look in front of you. Okay? That's the observe part. Use it. Take the risk and use it. So when, a cold idea, like coming up with an idea with nothing is hard. But when you have a seed of something you can work off of, that works. So anything you observe, heard, seeing, know about this person, know about the situation, something that's in common in the room, you can use that when you're in an impromptu situation. And then just as a tag on to that, I challenge you the next time you're at Table Topics to just start talking before you even know what you're going to say at the end of the sentence.
Do you have a suggestion as how do you trust yourself to actually just start talking?
Great question. Like I said, just the more improv's a muscle, okay? So where can you go and exercise your muscle? Of course, every day, whoever you talk to. Toastmasters, great place to join, to work on improvisation at Toastmasters. Improv is happening at Toastmasters whenever a question is asked and answered. Whenever something goes wrong at a meeting, whenever something falls over something goes wrong at a meeting, whenever somebody does something you didn't quite expect, and so you need to support them in some way and cover for them. It's not just answering the question, it's an asking the question. Improv is happening all over the place in a Toastmasters meeting, so I highly recommend using that improv gym of Toastmasters since we're all Toastmasters, as the first place to go to start working out more.
Just a question about how to organize your message in improv or impromptu. How to organize your message in impromptu.
Yeah, great. Okay. So if you're telling a story, there's something called the story spine that improv developed. It's once upon a time there was, and every day they did, until one day, and that's where the challenge happens, and then conflict till the climax, and then the carry out. And that's a great little spine you can use to tell an impromptu story in Table Topics, or to kids, or to anyone at any time. And then if you go study with Table Topics people who are good at Table Topics, there's all kinds of structures that they're using. They could use then, now, and how. They would use before and after. They would use, this is how this group applies, this is how this group sees it, this is how that group sees it, right? This is how kids see it, this is how teachers see it, this is how adults see it, this is how it was in the past, this is how it can be in the future. All kinds of those different imaginative ways to answer Table Topics. So there's all kinds of different structures that you can find online, I would say, to find that out.
One of the individuals in the chat, as we're talking about negotiating, suggested using yes and as opposed to saying but.
Yeah, okay, that's a great point. Thank you for that. And this will be the last answer before I wrap things up. Yes, but is a way to say no without saying no. And how many times do you hear yes, but during the day? Yes, but that'll never work. Yes, but my boss won't go for it. My husband won't go for it. My wife won't go for it. My kids won't go for it, right? It's a way to say no. It's a blocking. Yes, and is the opposite of that. It allows you to spiral up to a solution instead of spiral down into the abyss with yes, but. If you have a yes, but conversation similar to how we did the yes, and, in other words, somebody makes an offer, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but, it stops pretty quickly because you don't get anywhere. Versus yes, and, which you can keep going on and in so many different directions. So definitely, I would say yes, and is a better approach than yes, but in a negotiation. Okay, so final story. It was 2014. I was in Las Vegas. I was at a workshop run by Ed Tate, world champion of public speaking from 2000. Since 2000, he'd gone on and become a professional and a trainer, and he was doing a great workshop business with Darren LaCroix as his partner. So I signed up to go to his Train the Trainer workshop. I flew into Vegas, and the night before the workshop was to start, the fire alarm went off in my hotel room. I didn't sleep at all. I went down to the lobby. Everyone was around in their pajamas like zombies. It was 3 a.m. Fire alarm would not stop going off. The firemen came. It was a mess. So the next morning, when I got up, I complained to the manager. I complained to the taxi driver that took me to the hotel where the workshop with Ed Tate was. And when I got into the room where Ed Tate was in front, bouncing around with the music, ready to start the day, my face reflected my feelings. I slammed my notebook down. Ed Tate observed it. Oh, he came on over. So, Elaine, how's it going? Ed, the fire alarm went off at my hotel. I didn't get any sleep. Before I could take another breath, he didn't miss a beat. He used that. Oh, that reminds me, Elaine, one time I flew to New Zealand, and it's a long flight, and I was so tired when I got there, and I had no idea what day it was. I was in bed, and I was sound asleep, and the fire alarm went off. And before I could figure out what was going on, I looked up, and you know that strobe light that goes off over the bed? I was so confused. I thought it was the way to shut off the alarm, that it was like the alarm clock. So there I am on the bed, and I'm jumping up and down, and I'm trying to hit that strobe light, and I couldn't hit it, and it wouldn't go off. And you know what happened? Before long, I was laughing, and Ed had all of us laughing, and I learned something that day from him, and it's this: we can choose our attitudes no matter what happens to us. He was really doing an extreme yes and, wasn't he? He was taking a look. He was observing. He was using, and he took the risk to say, I can get her to laugh. But he was saying, yes, these are the circumstances facing us, and what can I, Ed Tate, do to move this forward in a positive direction? And that was to acknowledge the reality of my situation and take it in a whole new direction. We can choose our own attitudes. You can choose your attitude today. You can choose how you're going to show up for your audience, to be present and in the moment and to be there for them. And when you do, you will connect with them deeply and a level up from wherever you are, and you'll enjoy yourself more too. So keep on saying yes and, everybody. Look out, OUT, and please keep in touch. I would love to hear how this is working for you. Thank you.
Everyone give Elaine a huge round of applause for that information.
Thank you so much.
And Elaine, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, I believe there's a slide here coming up, and you can email me, elaine@elainelung.com. That's the easiest way. Okay, there's a slide in there in the chat box if you'd like to download that.
Okay, perfect.
I can put my email, I'll put my contacts in the chat box as well, so you don't have to download the slide if you don't want.
Good.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. So before I introduce our founder, please, one more round of applause for Elaine. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the founder of the Toastmasters Revelation Program, Elaine Lung.
Thank you, Gary, for being our Toastmaster today. Thank you, Elaine, and thank you, Ishiras, for opening the meeting. And special thanks to Rena for the publicity of this program. Before I introduce our next speaker for next Saturday, may I request you to just tell me about your club, maybe city or even country in the chat box. Now, please help me welcome our next speaker for next Saturday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., Christian Crump.
Session 3, October 10th, is 1 week from today at 2 p.m., and I am excited to talk about evaluations. What I really enjoyed about Elaine's presentation today, Elaine, you knocked it out of the park. Thank you so much for setting a great example of a professional speaker today, is not only what we can learn from improv, but the process of practicing improv. When we went into our breakout room and we practiced it, our brain was molding and shaking and stretching, and we paused and we laughed and we were uncomfortable. That is a huge resource to do and have in Toastmasters. And next week, we're going to talk exactly about that in evaluations. You're going to learn 3 different items of evaluations. 1 is why we evaluate, 2 is what to evaluate, and 3 is how to evaluate. And these are for our very newest Toastmasters, or if you've been around the block a few times, a framework and structure that will help you give better evaluations. But not only will we cover just giving better evaluations, a big portion is why we want to evaluate. It's the mindset of stepping up and saying yes, because we may have the know-how, but we don't have the will to do it. We're still afraid. So we're also going to talk about the benefits of practicing evaluations. Why should we evaluate more and more and more? What it does is it helps our brains, it helps our outlooks, and of course, it helps our relationship. We have a lot to cover in 52 minutes next week. I hope to see all of you and your smiling faces from your living rooms, offices, or park benches next week, October 10th at 2 p.m. Gavin, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Christian, for the introduction. I have just posted our Meetup website. If you want to get updated, please just subscribe to our Meetup website. And now I would invite Ishiras to introduce the Fall Fusion. Ishiras, please.
Thank you, Gavin. Hello, everyone. This is Ishrat Fatima. I'm the Fall Fusion Chair for this season for District 101. We are having evaluation and humorous speech contest. If you or any of your club members are interested in attending the contest, please request them to register using the link here in the chat to receive all the communications. And for more details about the Fall Fusion, here is the link. Thank you, Gavin. Over to you.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. I have noticed we have many participants coming from Australia, China, India, many different countries. And we are here to help you, to bring you the best of the best speakers relating to communication, the connection, the evaluation, being humorous, many different dimensions of communication. We only invite the best of the best speakers, serving you to leveling up your communication to the next steps. And see you all next Saturday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. The meeting is adjourned.